Okay, tell us your name, what you're reading.
Of course, my name is William Shakespeare. I will be reading for you today an original work called Hamlet. To be or not to be? That is the
Thank
question.
you.
Are you sure?
Yep, we'll call your agent. Thank you for coming.
Are you sure you don't want me to continue?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bill.
William.
Alright, William whatever, shake a stick.
William Shakespeare.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. Bill, baby. What happened? The audition process didn't go as we planned, and that's all right. I got big plans for you and I, Mr. Bill Shakespeare. I really thank you for letting me be your agent, man. That's what I'm paid to do. I'm paid to take care of you, baby. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give you the world, man. But you gotta know that Hollywood is looking for something different these days. They're not just looking for that old, beautiful prose and gorgeous tongue and cheek and all the metaphors and ironies. No, man, we need some trailer moments. You got some great battle scenes written in some of your scripts that I've read. I know it. I've read them. Well, my assistants have read them, but they tell me there's some great battle scenes in there. And I know that I can help you get seen. Hey, here's a thought. You ever thought about doing a southern accent? You should think about it. It sells these days. It softens you up a little bit. People react better to you when you got a southern accent. You know what I mean? No, I'm just thinking of things to do. Bill, I'm a straight shooter. I'm gonna be frank with you because, look, there's no reason not to be, but maybe make some different wardrobe choices around. That's so 1580s what you're wearing, man. I mean, get yourself some jeans, some Crocs. I bet you look good in Crocs. Yeah, that would be good. Oh. You hear that? Oh, it's my phone. Oh, I gotta go. Hey, Bill. Hey, call me, all right? Or text me. And not with any of the funny words that you use. Text me like normal people speak. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk, man. And I promise you, next audition, you're gonna nail it. You're gonna kill it, man. I know it. We're gonna get you a job. All right, I gotta go. Hey, sweetie, how you doing? Oh, hey, baby, how you doing? Nice to see you. Nice to talk to you. Yeah, all right. Nah, nobody important. Don't worry about it. Just another client. Yeah, you know how it is.
Well, sir, if that is the case, then I need to explore other options. I think that maybe it is time to go indie now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to It's Time to Go Indie Now, Episode 16. I am your host, Joe Compton. Thank you for joining us. Oftentimes when I'm constructing these shows, I am looking for a theme to bring them all together. And I typically often go to quotes to find my inspiration for the theme. And I found one that was very apropos for this particular episode. It's: you go through stages in your career that you feel good about yourself. Then you feel awful, like, why didn't I choose something else? But overall, I'm pretty satisfied I made the right choice when I decided to be an actor. And that is by Mr. Gene Hackman. And like I said, it's very apropos of what we're going to be talking about, because as artists, we all go through stages. When we begin our stage, constructing our stage when we're creating something. And then from there, we take the stage that we've created and we try and get into a bigger stage. Typically, we first try traditionally doing that, querying agents, sending to book publishers that you think might be interested in your manuscript. Or you go, if you're a screenwriter, you go and query agents, or you go onto a website where you post your script and hope that a producer comes and contacts you, or you go out and pitch to Hollywood producers. There's also musical showcases for musicians who showcase their talent and then hopefully get signed by a label, or they go and try and get themselves onto a festival or attached to a known act so that they can be seen that way. And those are routes that sometimes work and sometimes they don't. And for those who get frustrated by those routes and then realize they're not the routes that they want to take, what ends up happening is they go to the next stage, which is, of course, deciding what they're going to do with this art that they've created, and they want to get it out there, so they decide to do it themselves, the indie route. And that stage then fosters whatever happens to you from there. Oftentimes, the stages become bigger because then you're learning how to become a business. You're learning how to be, an entity as opposed to just being an artist. And then you grow that, and lo and behold, you're often running into the bigger stages. But, all of our interviews today, I have 3 of them for you. 2 of them authors, Rebekah DODSON and RONELLE Antoinette, and then filmmaker Christian DORAN, have all been through the stages. They've all started to get to a stage where they're thinking about, what's the next step for me? And it's a very complex question, and we also tackle a lot of that in our segments today. We have our book review from Jen OKUBO. We have a movie review from Jason Greensides, and Clara's back to do her unique music review. And we have a new releases segment, which is a little different than what we've been doing with new releases. So I hope you like that. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the new releases segment. That means a lot to me to get that feedback. We have a great short film as well, something very unique and interesting. And with that, I think we should start our show, huh? All right.
Multi-genre writer, do you feel, or has someone even pointed out to you, that there's a commonality with all the books you write, a style that resonates more as like this is a Rebekah DODSON novel as opposed to this is a Rebekah DODSON romance? Is there a style that you cling to or that you found helps you when you're writing?
I definitely think that part of my style is the ability to describe scenery and specific periods, just the ethical proportion of where things are laid out in a room. I spent a lot of time in the master's program looking at how to describe bedrooms, banquet halls, through different time periods. And I know a lot of authors will say, don't use weather, but I love using weather, and it's very prominent through a lot of my stuff because I think that a lot of times in real life, when it's snowing, we tend to feel, sad and depressed. When it's sunny, we feel happy and excited. And so a lot of my style has to do with, here's the vibrant imagery that's surrounding them. What's going on? What's the weather like? What color are the walls in the room? What are they eating? What are they drinking? So like background detail is prevalent in all of my novels.
You penned your first story at 12. Why do you think storytelling became so natural for you?
I loved history stories where history kind of left off, and I wanted to know more about characters, especially characters that were going through things like the Civil War, World War I, World War II. I wanted to know like how the women lived back then and how they interacted and how they fell in love. And so I started writing. My mother, I was homeschooled, so my mother would give me assignments like, you can do this math, or you can do like, write this story, and I would always go for the story. So I started doing that at a really young age.
And the first story you penned, I know it's mentioned that you mentioned on your website that it was actually published, right?
Yeah, I had a published story in a 4-H magazine, like a long time ago, and it wasn't the best story either. It was about a young girl that falls in love with a soldier who's going off to join the Northern Army in the Civil War, and I actually still have a copy, and it is just it's not my best work ever.
You're somewhat of a hybrid author, are you not? You were published by a publishing company for your romance stuff?
So I was originally with a publishing company. When I finished my master's program, I decided to go with a publishing company just because I had seen so many indie authors out there that were struggling, and I didn't originally want to be one of those. But it fell apart.
What's one tip you would give someone if they're looking to go that route? What's one thing that somebody could do that would really help them in the process?
One thing that authors need to do is like a lot of research, because the publishing company that I did go with didn't have a huge following, and in the end I think that's kind of what did it in, because they didn't have the readers and the clientele yet. And so I think it's really, really important to look at their past authors, the covers they're doing. I would probably never go with a publisher who's just starting again, because it was kind of a rocky road to get any exposure through them. But I would definitely say to authors, like, you need to do your research.
So when you went out on your own, what part of that process did you start to enjoy?
Well, actually, the best experience has been working with my editor, Courtney Cannon. I'll just throw her name out there because she's been really great. I don't even remember where I found her. I just remember throwing my novel at her and going, will you just edit this? Can you just take care of this for me? Because I need to get this published. And she actually became a fangirl of one of my characters. Okay. And she immediately said, okay, I have this great idea for a cover. We have to put him on the cover. I know what he looks like in my head. I can see it. And she pulled up a model on a stock website, and I was like, that's him, that's Gil, that's my character. And so to be able to have this very specific character on my cover that looks like who I had in my head, that was the best thing about being an indie, because a publishing company would have never, I mean, they would have read the book, but they would have never connected to that character on this deep level. They would have just been like, oh yeah, here's the stuff you need to fix. But my editor was so personal about it that it just, like, I don't know that I could go back to the publishing company. I keep toying with this idea, and I'm like, but it's so impersonal. Like, I would not somebody obsessing over characters and doing all this great stuff. So
what surprised you most about the romance audience that you didn't expect?
Well, so I don't write erotica. I don't write sex. I write more like sweet romance, and it's almost always for an older audience, people that are in their 30s or 40s that have missed the chance for love, that are having these second chances in their relationship. And so when I started publishing that, a lot of people would start complaining, actually, like, oh, I wanted this to be just sex and no emotional connection whatsoever. And that's actually kind of why I'm branching into different genres right now, into fantasy and sci-fi, because the market's saturated with these very explicit novels, and that's not me. I don't write that.
Being an avid historian and traveler, what do you think is one thing most world builders take for granted when they're building their worlds?
Class systems is one thing that I don't see in a lot of fantasy novels. And I know, like, I love reading R.A. Salvador and Terry Goodkind and David Gemmell. Those are some of my favorite authors. And they specifically focused on the difference between the super rich and the super poor. And I think a lot of fantasy novels kind of focus on, here's the chosen one that's the son of a prince and has had everything given to him. And, or they'll, here's this street urchin that has nothing and he rises to the top. But there's never, like, that middle line. I'm writing a steampunk novel right now, and I try to really show that there's this poverty side, and then there's this kid that he's just the knight's son, and he doesn't have all the riches of the kingdom.
the first time that we ran across one another, or that we've interacted the most is at some Facebook parties and some takeovers. You're pretty active in those, from what I've seen.
I get closer to book release, I do like 2 takeovers a day. So I'm doing about 10 a week usually on average.
Where do you think people go wrong in their approach to doing a takeover? What's one thing you notice that really kind of irks you when you're watching people do takeovers?
One of the things, and I know like I screwed this up when I started doing takeovers, but I have a really talented group of authors that, you know, we kind of formed a little bit of a cohort there, and we share ideas on how to do takeovers. But one of the things that irritates me is when people just post the cover to their book and then the link, and it just says, go buy it. And so I think like teasers with your writing style and dynamic, like pictures of what the characters look like, you know, it's $30 a month for deposit photos, and you get access to 4 million photos. Go find what your characters look like, you know, and play games with your audience. Like, take this quiz. What's your Starbucks name? What's your, you know, play an icebreaker, something like that. It just drives me insane when I have takeovers and they just talk to the wall. Like, here's my book and here's my characters. And I'm like, no, I really want to know more about you as an author, and I want to know what you're into and what kind of nerdy things that you do.
What does the word indie mean to you?
The word, well, thank you for something that's not depressing. The word indie really does mean the ability to make your own choices when and where you publish your novel. If you want to give it away for free to get reviews, you can do that. If you want to put it 99 cents just to get the word out, you can do that. If you want to take it down and make your cover better, you get all of those. Those are all your choices to make, you know. I've got like, my publisher didn't do the best job he could have done with the covers. I'm pulling all those down, and Courtney's redesigning the cover as we speak. So I'm so excited that I get to change it. And with a publisher, it's like 2 years, you're done. You get whatever kind of crappy cover they give you. If someone finds editing mistakes, then you have to blame it on the publisher. It's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't, you know, I have a lot of friends that are published. I love them, but every time you know, you want to come to this takeover, can't traditionally published. You can't come and support other authors. And the indie community is huge. I mean, you can't go anywhere on Facebook without finding a book, even if you're not a writer. So I wish some people would wake up and realize that there's this huge network.
One thing you think everyone can learn in traveling to a different part of the world?
How different we are as Americans and how different other cultures view things. I lived in England when I was young. I was middle school, early high school years, and just being in France, Italy, Germany, going all those different places was crazy culture shock, because these people just run up and kiss you, and they get in your face, and they give you food, and you know, we wouldn't have that in America at all. And it really changed. Like, my first book I wrote is actually set in France. And the character goes through a lot of stuff where she is uncomfortable being there because she's American. And so I always tell people, if you're ever down on your writing and you're close to giving up, take a 2-week sabbatical to Ireland or Italy or Japan. I don't care, but go somewhere else and get your head back in the game. I have a really good friend who lives in Belgium, and she travels to London to get inspiration for her stories all the time. You know, so it's not just us as Americans. It's just get out of the comfort zone. You have to go and be uncomfortable and learn about how people do stuff. It's actually pretty sad. Sometimes I just can't even believe what we're living in, which is kind of why I wrote a book where the world goes to heck, because it's bad already, you know. And I wanted to rebuild it. I wanted to make city-states out of the United States and put people in charge that would run it better. Just me.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, I'm with you. I think I think you're right. I think it's it's the selfish period for sure, and especially in American history, but in the world history too.
We'll probably be known as the selfish meme generation at some point, because people know everything about that Cash Me Outside girl, but they have no idea what play Shakespeare wrote, nor would they ever know a line from Shakespeare if they heard it. So it makes me sad.
You know, whenever I'm in a Facebook party takeover, which I am often, maybe not as often as Rebecca, but I do see her from time to time also doing a takeover. And it's pretty cool to watch how other people do takeovers. And not only that, but also get this unique perspective into the worlds that she's creating, because they are unique, they are interesting, and she does a great job describing them within these takeovers. So if you're in a Facebook party and you see Rebekah Dodson's name there, definitely want to check it out and watch what I've been seeing. I thank Rebekah so much for being a part of our show, and we'll be right back.
So I want to talk about very quickly the Indonesian film The Raid, because quite a lot of people haven't seen it. How many films do you act like that? Do you actually have gut level, visceral kind of, reaction to a film? Yeah, there's some horror films, but again, they're few and far between. But in terms of action films, now I'm the kind of guy who will totally look down on pretty much every big budget Hollywood action film there is, because I just hate it. They don't show the action, and particularly in fight scenes. It's something I really hated about the second Bourne film, when that shaky cam really kicked in. And that style of action is something that Hollywood just keeps doing over and over and over again, where you can't see anything. Even stuff like Batman, you can't see the fight scenes. It's just this shaky stuff, or even when it's not shaky, it's just all done with these really quick cuts. You can't see anything. We should just stop doing it. At least with the latest Mad Max film, Fury Road, it was just like, because you can often have this similar thing, with car chases where you can't actually see anything. It's just all about quick cuts and all done through the sound. If you're into kind of like Asian cinema, Asian action cinema, if you're up to date with your 90s John Woo, you follow things like big names like Ip Man. Just if you're into your action martial arts film, The Raid is absolutely essential in the last few years. This film is just like, it does action. I actually feel in a way that I've been waiting my whole life for this film, in the same way that Mad Max Fury Road, this is a one-in-a-lifetime film. Well, The Raid is also like that. The story is paper thin. A group of cops go to a tower block and raid it and try and kill everyone and get the main boss, or kill the main boss, whatever. That's literally the story. But the action, it will have you. It will get you at a gut level, and it's so brilliantly choreographed. Even the stuff to do with the guns. I mean, there's more sort of gunplay towards the beginning, and that stuff is like amazing. It's just like easily as good as something like a Die Hard or something. But then when the traditional Indonesian martial arts called silat, when that all kicks in, you just know they were on top of it. You just know they properly rehearsed this stuff over and over using video storyboards. And so not only is the actual moves that they perform on each other good, these guys are experts, and they're also experts at knowing how to present that visually. So you're often going to get wide shots, anyway, it's all cut together absolutely superbly. And it's just so bizarre that the director is just a Welsh guy. He's just this guy from Wales in Indonesia, and he's come out with like the best Asian action film that we've seen for a very long time. So yeah, I highly recommend The Raid. I also recommend The Raid 2. The fight scenes are equally as good. They've expanded into more story here, so it's a bit of a different film. But in terms of late night, stick it on at midnight, The Raid, and make sure you're alone. Make sure no one can hear the gasps, the noises you will make, because you will make them. There are some moments here that are just so creatively bizarre and violent and bloody and just completely memorable. You just have to see it. So if I know anyone who's into their action films, proper well-directed action, who's into their martial arts film, it's so essential to see The Raid, or it's also known as The Raid Redemption. You'll easily find it. So please watch that film if you're into your God, if you're into those type of films. And you know, one criticism one of my friends said to me after I forced him to watch it, he was like, yeah, it was good, but the end fight scene went on a bit long. I'm like, yeah, it did, didn't it? Yeah, exactly. The end fight scene is fucking brilliant. It's absolutely superb. It's just like, you have to see it. So yeah, please watch The Raid. It's incredible. Thanks.
So Ronelle, you've mentioned everywhere you can mention that you are drawn to the fantasy genre. What do you think it is about it specifically that draws you to that genre?
Honestly, it's always, for me, it's been an escape into another world. I have a visual impairment, so interacting with the real world is a little bit difficult for me. So when I can go to one that's been made up on a page and see everything in my head, that very much appeals to me.
How do you approach building your world? How detailed are you? Do you have a language, maps? How much of it have you built, and how much do you still have to build?
Oh, there's plenty still to be built, but as far as what I have, it has kind of been an evolving process. I started with the idea of some characters and kind of I guess probably a cookie cutter world when I started writing my series. But then as it developed and I got more involved and learned from what I'd written and what I'd read other places, then I started getting into, kind of making a language and building maps. I will admit I am not a good map builder. My husband laughed at the first couple that I showed him. So
as someone who's an avid reader of fantasy, are you inclined to want that as part of your fantasy experience, or are you okay with the author kind of holding back on it or sharing it at like a website or something to that effect?
I really think it depends on the author, and it depends on the world they've built. I'm great being inundated with it in a book, having a glossary and maps and that sort of thing. But if the author wants to hold back and publish it on their website, which I'll admit, some stuff I have done that with. I've got a map and a glossary that is on my website, but I've also gone back and added to the books. So I really think it just depends.
Has any of your fans or readers asked you for that information?
Yes. Actually, I hadn't even considered a glossary until there were some mentions in definitely more than one review saying that there were a lot of terms they didn't know and that a glossary or some kind of index would have helped them. I hadn't even considered one before people started asking. I've gone back and released an edition with a map and with a glossary as well.
You have a BA in counseling psychology.
Yes.
Do you draw upon that when you're creating your characters? Is that experience helpful in creating your characters?
It is, because it just makes me more aware of how people think and why they do what they do, and the explanations for people's actions. Like my crazy villains aren't just crazy villains. Like there's some psychological reasons behind why they act the way they do. And I think that also makes them more relatable because there are some people that look at that and go, oh, I have people in my life just like that.
Do your characters spend time on your psychology couch?
Yes, very much so.
When did you make this decision to self-publish?
I'd kind of thrown the idea around for a while after I seriously decided I was ready to publish. I tried the usual route of getting an agent, trying to find a publisher, and just rejection after rejection. I finally hooked up with an editor who had worked for Samhain, and she said that it was that the book was excellent, but that the fantasy genre was just a little saturated and they didn't have room on their calendar for mine. So I said, you know what, screw it. Let's just self-publish. I found Create Space and went from there.
What's been the most satisfying thing about self-publishing for you?
For me, honestly, I think it's having control over the process. There's nobody telling me what I have to edit out, what I have to change, or that I have to do things a certain way. That was all up to me. It was kind of a powerful feeling.
How many books do you have planned for your series?
Right now, at least 4, possibly 5. I'm still a little torn on whether that 5th book is needed, and we'll see when I get there.
Nice. Knowing that this is a series, how did you determine how far you were going to take the character arcs, or how much of the story you wanted to develop, and then where did you find the cutoff points for each book that you're trying? Was it a difficult thing, or was it just a natural thing that happened?
The cutoff between the 1st and 2nd book was pretty natural. I'm still debating with myself where to cut off the 3rd book, and hence the reason why I'm not sure whether there's going to be 4 or 5. And all of that tends to change and develop as ideas come to me and the more writing that I do. So a mix of both, I would say.
Were you very conscious of that at the beginning of the process? Were you thinking about how much of the character should I reveal in this first one, and where it should end, or were you just letting it go as you were writing and then trying to just edit it down?
Honestly, when I very first started this, I was 18. I was a senior in high school, and I really had no intention of this going anywhere other than a story for my friends to read. So I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it when I started. But as I got closer to publication and how the story and the characters had evolved so much, I did finally realize I needed to sit down and plot out who I wanted and where I wanted them to go and how much of them to reveal in each book. I have a tendency to overshare, which my husband has pointed out that kind of, ruins the suspense for people to read additional books. So I've had to be more conscious and plot that out of how much to show and how much to kind of hold back for future books.
So you started this process as a pantser then?
Yes, very much so.
Interesting, because most fantasy authors are really heavy plotters, so it's really refreshing to see a fantasy author take that approach.
Yes, and I've never liked outlines. I despise them, but I've discovered that in order not to write myself into a corner or contradict what I've already published, I kind of need to do a little more planning than I'm generally inclined to do.
You just recently went through the audiobook process.
Yes.
What did you learn from that process that you didn't know before?
That there's as much variety in narrators and audiobook companies as there are in publishing houses and authors. I used ACX, the Amazon company that works with Audible and iTunes, to do my audiobook. And the very first people that actually contacted me, I don't remember the name of the company, but they were outrageously expensive. And I laughed when I saw the number, and then I realized, I'm like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to afford this. But I learned that if you can hold out for a little while and take some auditions and give it a little bit of time, you will find a narrator that's perfect.
What cliche are you careful to avoid in your writing? I mean, that you see so often in fantasy.
The one I hope to avoid the most is the helpless damsel, the one that swoons as soon as she sees the man, and that she needs to be rescued and she needs to have a man do it for her. That being said, I also have a tendency to write them, so I have to be careful in not fulfilling my own most disliked cliche.
In your reviews and readings of fantasy authors, is that the one that sticks out to you the most that you really don't like?
I would say one of the biggest, yeah.
Is there one that one that you can think of that you're really not fond of? That you see
Um,
quite often?
I don't know that it's a cliche, but one of the things I dislike that I see in fantasy, I mean, I can't name any specific examples at the top of my head, but magic that doesn't follow its own rules. That just is of the Deus ex machina. All of a sudden, they have a magical talent that saves the day. That there's no explanation for where it comes from, why they have it. We've never seen it before. Like that drives me nuts.
Yeah. What do you think? Conversely, what do you think is missing in today's fantasy books that you're reading?
Originality. So just I feel like a lot of the same tropes and the same situations are played out. I want to see something fresh, something new. I want to see authors even take those old tropes, but in a different direction and employ them differently and just give us something fresh.
What's an author's best way to approach a reviewer? How do you like to be approached? Let's put it that way.
As a reviewer, really a polite email is great. Let me know where you found me, how you found me. Um, don't butter me up. Don't give me all the flowery and don't fill your request with cliches like a genre busting novel or enticing, electrifying. Like as a reviewer, I'll be the judge of that. You tell me what you're pitching to me and what you're looking for.
So, what do you like about being indie, and what does that term mean to you?
I mean, indie, I mean, it's short for independent, and that's what I want to be in this process. I love having the independence of finding my own cover artist, finding my own editor, and doing things at my own pace and in my own time. I find being an indie, it's powerful, and I like having that in publishing.
What common mistake do you see most often in your editing services that you're just baffled by?
Um, People that don't run the spell check. Like that is the most basic, even when you were turning in papers in college, at least run the spell check. That'll catch 90% of the errors that I see most often in my reviews. No, it doesn't catch them all. You definitely need to have somebody else look it over, but just I am baffled by people that don't check their spelling.
Are you more of a content editor or are you more of a copywriting editor?
I do a mix of both, but I tend to focus most heavily on like copyright, really, because the content is yours. You put that out there. You write whatever you want to write. That's not my job to judge. If I see holes, I'll ask a question. I'll point it out. But really, I'm there for the structure. The technical stuff is more what I'm concerned about.
Are you someone who has a hard time turning off their editor brain when you're writing?
Yes, very much so. Writing and reading. I have been told I've turned into kind of I think my mom calls me an English Nazi and a stick in the mud because if I'm distracted by technical errors, I have a hard time getting into a story. And writing too, like there's certain things that once I've discovered that's a no-no, it drives me nuts when I go back and find it in my own writing.
So what's one tip that's so simple? I mean, I think you've already proclaimed it, but we'll ask the question anyway. That's so simple that anyone can do at any level of writing to help themselves in the editing process.
I mean, other than run the spell check, reread your own work. Not immediately. I'm not saying that as soon as you type the end at the bottom of the page, you should go back to page 1 and start over. Let it set. And actually, I think this was a suggestion Stephen King made in his book on writing is let it set for a while. Go on and do other things. But before you publish it, you have to come back and go through it again.
How many drafts would you say is a healthy number for a writer to go through? Is it dependent on the piece, or is there, if you're doing like 20 drafts, you've gone too far?
I'd say 20 is probably a little much. I mean, don't be so busy editing your first sentence that you never get to the second. I have a lot of drafts, but then again, I write piecemeal. I'll write chapters and bits as they come to me, and I re-edit them. Like I'll edit and re-edit them on their own, but then I edit the whole thing over again. So I would say 20 is probably excessive, but you should be doing at least 3.
So complete the sentence for me. When I'm writing, I am.
Oh, when I am writing, I am the focused, fire-breathing dragon that you do not want to disturb at peril of your own life and limb. Interrupt me at your peril.
I'm sure your husband knows that all too well then.
Oh, yes, he does. He knows the look.
Hello everyone, welcome to Go Indie Now. I am OKUBO. I do reviews. I'm going to do a little bit of a call to action, and I'm going to use my books as an example. Love. I wrote this. It's a great book. It has around 13 reviews, and I've given away, I would say, close to 2,000 copies of it. Maybe close to 3. Brotherhood, Memories, they each have a couple of reviews on them. Kaoru in Love's Shadow, it has 1 review. Again, I've given away, with this one I've given away almost 1,500 copies by ebook, and I've given away about, I would say, 30 physical books. I've gone through professional sites and everything trying to get reviews for my book. Now, why am I talking about this? I'm going to do a little bit of a call to action. We need to be realistic about the books we already have and read them and give reviews, especially if they're indie authors. We need these reviews to survive. We need these reviews to be competitive with the big publishing houses who push their books to the front. We don't have huge incomes. We don't have huge marketing machines behind us. We have each other, and with that, we help each other by reviewing each other's works. Now, the reviewing part, you want a 5-6 page review of the book. You know, I think you're asking for too much. A paragraph, yeah, that's a pretty decent review in my opinion. You know, 3 to 4 sentences about how you feel about the story, the writing, and you know, the whole overall atmosphere that the book gave to you. Yeah, that's a good thing, I think, right there. I know we have books that we're planning to get to, and everyone goes, "Oh, I'll just put it to my to be read list," and that just keeps growing and growing. It doesn't just hurt the indie authors whose books you have; it hurts the community because we work in a society by example, and if there's people who are just getting books and not leaving reviews, you know, other people go, well, my friend hasn't left a review for me, so I'll just hold up and I'll just read another book and I won't leave a review. And it's this double negative that just keeps building, and that hurts everybody. If you're going through your Kindles, you're saying, okay, I'm going to read some books and I'm going to set some time aside and read a book. Yeah, review it. Give an honest review. I go for the books that have, you know, under 10 reviews to try to give them a chance and a leg up. And I want you guys, you know, the viewers of this, you know, we can do this together. I try to give the most honest review I can, which is one of the reasons why I don't give spoilers away in my reviews. I give my feelings on the books and the writing itself, a little bit about my feelings about the characters, but I really don't go into the story in detail because I want to keep those surprises for the other readers to pick up on. We need to work on filtering out, in my opinion, who we give our books to so that we can get positive or negative feedback. That's all going to help us to become better writers, but importantly, it's going to show other prospective buyers if they want to pick up our book or not by the reviews. I really want to impress on you guys that we need to review books. We have to review books. We have to provide the support for our indie authors by not just buying their work, but giving feedback. When you go to a restaurant and the food's good, You tell your friends about it. That's what reviews are. You picked up a book, it's good. You tell your friends about it with a review. You leave a review, but that just spreads the word even better. I'm really hoping that you guys will pick up a book and review it. I'm really hoping that you guys are listening to me and you're going to go through your Kindle reader. You're going to go through your stack of books and you're going to say, look, I have a huge stack of books to get to. Let me get some reading done and just start reading. And I know there's people going to say, well, I'm a very slow reader. You know what helps being a slow reader? Read. The more you read, the faster you get at it because the better you get at reading. It's the same thing with writing as an indie author. The more you write, the better you get at it, the faster you get at it. This is the same with anything you do. The more you do it, the better you become at doing that activity. And a review does not take that long. I know it doesn't. So this is Gino Kubo. My books, Memories, Brotherhood, Kaoru in Love's Shadow, and Love. I hope if you have a copy, I hope you read it and you're planning to give me a review. If you haven't had a copy, please pick yourself up a copy. And if you have the space in your reading list to do and give a review, that's about it. Help each other out. This is what we indies do. So this is Juno Kubo. You have a good one for Go Indie Now.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Deese. I'm an indie author. I was invited by Joe Compton to do a reading of one of my short stories from this lovely little gem of an anthology, the Ghostly Rights Valentine's Anthology 2017, brought to you by Pasted Publishing House, Ltd. It includes indie authors such as C.A. Keith, Adrena Lane, Karen J. Mossman, Adele Marie Park, Jane Risden, yours truly, Jennifer Deese, and Lynn Mulligan. Also, there is a beautiful poem by the talented Kyrena Lynch. The story I will be reading today is called The Other Side of Here by Jennifer Deese. February has always made Rose happy. It was the month she met her soulmate, and 4 years later they even got married on Valentine's Day. And each year, as the 14th approached, she would ready herself for all the wondrous surprises her husband Pete was sure to come up with. She hummed softly to herself, a smile on her face. She didn't get to see him as often now that she was in a home for the elderly, but he never failed to visit on Valentine's Day. She laid out her red dress on the bed, smoothing the wrinkles from the faded fabric. It had always been his favorite, so each year she donned it with pride. She looked forward to 6 p.m. when he'd walk in that door, a dozen red roses under one arm and a box of chocolates for his rose of all roses under the other. After laying her dress and shoes and accessories out, she was looking out the window, enjoying the sun shining through the glass as it warmed her face, reminiscing in all the years that they had spent together. And once again she recalled the words he often said, "I'll see you just on the other side of here, my lovely rose of all roses." Meanwhile, at the nurse's station, in the very same home that Rose had been living in since her husband had passed away 7 years previous, there was a bustle of activity as the staff convened their daily meeting. Ella was new to the staff and still learning the ropes. It was much like her previous job, except that the staff here was overly tolerant of some of the patient's delusions. In her last position, administration had always been a stickler for not allowing a patient to submerge themselves in such activities. It wasn't deemed healthy for their mental status to let them sink into their imaginations so deeply. Ella gave a silent tisk, 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 for she too felt that allowing a resident to do such things was a very big mistake. But a new job meant new roles. She pushed her cart down the hall, checking to see who her first resident of the day would be. Room 29, Rose Smythe, dementia patient. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Matt Beaton, and I'm here to read you a short excerpt from my debut novel, Spyglass and the Cherry Tree, and the first chapter in the Shadowland Chronicles. Something felt wrong. Skye didn't know what, but something was causing her stomach to churn and her hair to stand on end. She looked across at the abandoned lighthouse. From here it was only a few hundred yards across the gravel road, but the darkness hid any details. In the distance she could hear angry waves crashing against the rocks at the base of the cliff. As she looked, a small green light flickered inside the lantern room before disappearing just as suddenly. Skye blinked, convinced that she'd imagined it, but sure enough, it flashed again. Nobody had been inside the lighthouse for years. Skye had tried herself, but had found that the only door in had rusted shut. She had to investigate. This might be the only excitement she'd get all summer. Grabbing a jacket from her suitcase, Skye stuffed a torch into her pocket and her trusty penknife into her sock and made her way to the back door of the house. It didn't take Skye long to run the short distance to the lighthouse, battling every step against the growing wind and rain. Worryingly, the once rusted door now hung open and swung loudly in the storm. Not knowing what she might find, Skye made her way slowly through the door and up the winding steps.
Hey there, Joe. It is a beautiful evening here in North Carolina. The crogs are frocking, and I am going to sit out here and read just a couple of paragraphs out of my new release, Blood and Bile. Whoa, look at that wind coming up. By J.C. Boyd, my brother, and myself. This is the first book in the Legacy series that is introducing his dark fantasy world of Jorth. So, I'm going to be reading out of Chapter 5 from the perspective of Hunfrith, one of the two main characters in the story. Mickle might has been mustered in this hall, my brothers. We Thursar have weathered the world even as it waxes dark. Not rime and wind, not wolf and bear, not even the deep hunger of winter will cause Thursey's people to grow weary or weak. Uri Conungurg lifted his mead, held in a speckled yak horn, slightly curved as long as his forearm. Hunfrith lifted his own horn to match his kin, though he had no throaty cry to offer. Buri's timidity, the night of Ranvir's crime, presented a weakness that Hunfrith had never thought to see in the son of Thursey. And though Buri had the same verve as his father, capable of stirring the hearts of the 30 or so men gathered in the drinking hall, he was not his father. Despite the pelts from mammoth, bear, and caribou on the ground to keep the cold of the tundra within the hall and spacious Gur at bay, a distinctive chill flushed Hunfrith's skin. Casting an eye over the clay pots filled with mead lining the edges of the tent, he knew his only source of warmth or comfort would not come from the hearty blaze in the middle of the mead hall. Winter is not over. Her bite is as sharp tonight as it was at the first snow. Buri's bone-brittle beard rattled as he shook it to and fro. We are Thursar. The all created fire to battle frost. The all created light to repel dark. The all made us mighty to conquer the weak. Do not cloak yourselves in doubt and misery for the frost and dark in Ranvir, because we command fire and will defeat our paltry foes. And tonight, he cried, is for fire. Tonight we drink. Tilting his head back, Buri put the horn to his lips and began to guzzle. So, I hope you enjoy that. That's about a little over a page of the story out of Chapter 5 in. Hope you guys enjoy. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hi, I'm Marnie Kate, author of the Protectors of the Elemental Magic series, as you can see behind me. I've been asked today to share a little bit from my third book that was recently released, Maisie. And so if you want to sit back, I'm going to read a little bit from Chapter 8. There's not really anything too much of a spoiler, but if you've not read any of the series, you might be kind of wondering what's going on. As we walked along the river, butterflies jumped as they swam upstream in the indigo froth. A flock of squirrels above dipped and dived into the water. Trout slithered in front of us before burying into the brush. Cole had refused to teach me how to hunt for them because he said he'd always be there to take care of me. He was wrong. The indescribable smell of the fresh water rushed at me, and I knew we were close to the rocky shore of Sparrow Lake. Essie suddenly stopped at the large oak tree. "Is this the portal?" I asked. There was nothing special about the tree. Other trees around it had unique-looking knots or areas of peeling bark. It was just a plain tree. My heart began to beat fast. I was more nervous than I thought I would be. Every visit to the realm of the goddesses had an impact on time. In Snow Estra's winter world, months were like years. And the first time I'd visited Danu, I slept for 7 days while my spirit explored her world. Essie assured me while Bridget's world was a unique realm, the time we were there would align with Starton. She led me through the tree. Inside, I could hear the familiar heart of the tree, ba-dum, ba-dum. We had been walking for only a few minutes when the black void of the tree ended and we were transported to another world. The turquoise sky held salmon and purple clouds.
Greetings, fellow humans, and thank you to Joe Compton for inviting me to read something from one of my 2 latest collections called Relay of Rhymes, and this is actually a poetry collection. And the poem that he asked if I could read is Brewed to Perfection. In the cup within thy soul, the bean that's never been will be a scene that's never seen, regardless of the toll. Coffee, oh coffee, sweet nectar of life, a sip of pure patience as I push through the strife. Some sugar to soothe the oh so bitter tooth, let me not be uncouth, and offer some proof. 'Tis you that lets me deal, thanks to thee I can steal another day, another dollar, another ray to loosen my collar. To the coffee of my cup I give thanks for filling me with bitter life, with riveting relief, with you through me on a saucer that's landed, on a stirrer that's landed. Let us kiss and dance in my gut, through my brain, past my heart, and into chance.
My recommendation this month goes to Bedtime for Robots with their new album, Witch Hammer Redux.
I am the last demigod of this age. A perfect child, born from the limbs of a mortal. Poisoned with her milk, I was torn in two. I am perfect. In every way.
I would strip you down to the bed so you can struggle. Then I cut you.
Come on.
I slide my hands.
Oh, come on.
Till I feel something smooth. And I pull it out.
You probably think I've been to university, I'm pretty smart. But I've been to the School of Life. And rule number 1, be aware of your environment. Watch, listen, and learn. Now you university blokes might think, yippee, balloons, party time. This is important fire safety equipment, treat it with respect. I'll tell you what, I hope you're better than the last uni student they sent me. Useless, lefty, sex crazed. Oh, and because of him, you have to wear this.
I've got one for you. How many husbands does it take to change a light bulb? None. They didn't get the house.
There's no reception at all.
Good, isn't it?
Oh, Dietrich's going to kill me.
You're in the middle of the wilderness, away from work and that damned internet. Besides, relationships need space to breathe.
Relationships need commitment.
And trust. And respect.
Really? Respect? You're going to tell me about respect?
Look. Your mum and I
especially like the way you respected my girlfriend at my 21st birthday.
Oh!
Well, that was gold, that was.
I've got a story about that. I met her a couple of years ago when I was given blood. We went out and had dinner and everything else.
Where did this love of films begin for you, and how did you begin your serious filmmaking career?
My grandfather gave us a video camera, and I wasn't allowed to use it, and I think that was exactly why I would make a film every weekend. You know, it was in this brown closet, and I would kind of sneak it away, and my friends would come over, and I'd get them to do all sorts of things, and we'd come up with ideas, and there's actually, I think, a classics from the period of my, you know, sort of 12, 13, like stupid stuff, parodies, like all of those sorts of experimentation that kids do when you first pick up a camera. But all of that experimentation taught me, you know, the 180-degree rule and you know, framing and all that sort of stuff that I teach sometimes now, and all of that stuff kind of worked into me naturally, and it's interesting to be able to have to explain it to people who didn't have that kind of practice, I suppose. So I was able to get from that horrible old camera. When I was 21, I went to university and I made a feature film called Perfect, and it was digital, and it was, you know, it was pretty good. So I started taking it seriously about then. But I don't think my quality of production really got better until I went away to a film school in Melbourne, in Australia, and I lived in Melbourne for a year, and I came back with a new. I met a whole bunch of new people that had a whole they held filmmaking in such importance in their life, and it scaled me up as well. I could see how obsessed other people were with it, and it made me reevaluate how I saw it and how important it was to me. So I came back from that period and made a couple of shorts that I'm really proud of, and that's kind of my bar now. I need to better than that at least, or not at all.
So, what do you think is the value of a filmmaker starting with or doing short films?
Well, immensely, I suppose. Look, if we could all get jobs making commercials with fantastic budgets, or music videos with, for Madonna or something, it's like, yeah, sure, that's fantastic to be able to do that. But otherwise, how are you going to practice? How are you going to know what to do when you're finally given a budget? I'm amazed when I hear some stories about filmmakers who were like, oh yeah, I did this, and then I made my first feature film, and it's like, wow, I've heard about that feature film. It was a really good feature film. How did you learn? How did you know that was the craft? And I assume that it's the people that they work with. Like, working with great people will float up anything, that any possible quality that filmmaker has inside them. When you have to go through the kind of the trenches, I suppose, of those first short films, of people not showing up to set and things going wrong, and people get hungry because you've got to be out of the location in 2 hours, and you can't eat food, and you get to appreciate all of the different facets of it. There's so many different things that have to line up for a story to be told well, and I think the appreciation of all of those different roles, the smaller roles on a set that mean so much if you don't have them. And I don't think a filmmaker who's slipped into it easily will really understand why who are the people around them and what they mean to the production, and how you can get the most out of people, even when you're not paying them.
You're someone who's had success on the filmmaking or the film festival circuit. What is one key to that success? Is there a little trick or something to get seen or accepted?
I think it's research, really. Yeah. I've been in a lot of film festivals around the world, and it's because I read everything about the film festival before I enter it, and you read and because there's lots of film festivals out there, and there's a lot of opportunities for everybody, except that I have made a film that is in this, it has a narrow band of audience, and I have to find the film festivals that want that narrow band. So it's not about, entering Cannes. I've got friends who do that. They make a great film and they think, oh, we'll send it to Berlin and Cannes, and it's like, yeah, great, but you're probably not going to get it.
Yeah,
not going to get in. Those films cost $100,000, and they, it's really tough competition. But that's not the high art film festival market is not where most indies go, unless you've broken through and you've made something magical, which people do, and it's amazing when it happens. There is other world out there of smaller film festivals that are looking for very specific genres and brands, and that is where you got to find your brand and your target, and then people will be eating it up. You'll get lots of acceptance, and there'll be a community out there that you can talk to, and that's the kind of film festival I want to be in.
Has a film festival contacted you after seeing it at another film festival, or seeing that you won at a film festival?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite film festivals is probably Fantasia in Canada, in Montreal, and from that one screening of I'm not sure which film now, but a South American film festival called Fantastica, I think it was, picked it up, and those are like they're my Cannes, they're my Torontos. They look for genre pieces, and they love the weird and wonderful, and that's what I want to make.
What is your script writing process? Are you someone who's stream of conscious? Are you an outliner and plotter? How do you tend to write a script?
I'm an outliner. That's a good question. Depends on what I'm writing, right? So I'm writing a book at the moment, and I have done as little outlining as possible, and it's amazing. It's liberating. It really is. It's like, I can do whatever I want right now. I don't have to refer to this thing that I wrote 2 months ago. With a short film, often because of the condensed time frame, it's often based around a single idea. So it's stream of consciousness. I sit down, and in 4 hours, I've finished the first draft of the script. I've kind of worked it out in my head already. So it's just a matter of the outline is in my brain. When it gets to feature film scripts, then I outline. I outline because there's usually other people involved, and we all have to kind of be on the same track before we start. I outline because everything in a film has to be so concise, and the motivations have to be really worked out for it to achieve the kind of climaxes and dips and stuff that has been my process. But writing this book is changing my way of how I'm thinking about that, how I can write, and it can branch off in these crazy directions that I wasn't expecting, but it feels right, and it's right for the character. Probably the next feature film I'm going to write, I will do it that way. I'll forget about the hero's journey, and that's all inbuilt in me after so many years of learning all that stuff. But I'll just let it happen and find out what the character wants to do, instead of thinking, it has to end in this fire of this house or whatever. Just
looking for your 7 trailer points, right?
yeah, exactly. You're trying to achieve some formula that is why a lot of the big budget films are kind of getting boring these days, because we've seen the formula so much. So I want to change my process.
At what draft would you say you're usually thinking about it as a shooting script?
I always wonder, what is a draft? Like we write these things and then we edit them, and then you kind of call it a new draft, but nothing's really changed, and then you might rewrite it completely, and that's a real draft. So you can. I would say if you call an edit a draft as well, I would say 5 or 6.
Are you consciously writing, especially in the features for the 3-act structure? Are you consciously writing the points that you need to hit for that act with the tension, or are you just letting the acts kind of become their own thing and move forward that organically?
I know what works for me, and a major climax at the end of the story, at the end of the second act, leading into the third, is super important. I really feel like that is a convention that works for. I need in a story that I'm watching or reading or something like that. It's without it, I feel like I haven't been on that large roller coaster. So that one will always be there. The midpoint reversal will always be there. I've learned that is really powerful. I didn't really understand it for many years, and it I kind of understand how it refreshes a story. It renews things and lets you kind of, in a way, the character can start again. I think that's really important. And I do understand showing the audience a world without the problem first. And then everything in between, I'm still working out. it's all those are the three major elements that I want to see and want to feel, so that I can understand how a story can be structured that's entertaining.
When you're wearing your producer and director hats, what are some of the bigger challenges that you've come across and has it kind of clashed with your writer hat at times?
First of all, casting. Like finding a great cast is so ultimately, you know, your writing doesn't really get translated onto the screen unless an actor understands the tech. And I find there are actors who will come and act. You know, it's great. They'll say the lines and stuff like that. But that kind of that feeling that they know who the character is and what they're doing and why they're doing it is just lost. It's just not there. And a good actor will come on set having thought about it for 5 seconds. You know, like it doesn't need to be this like live the moment every day for the weeks before the shoot. It's just about having a clear vision of what is in the text to draw from. So I think it doesn't have to be a great actor, it just has to be the right actor. And then, of course, there's, I suppose, budget. I mean, last year I just finished Me and My Mates vs. Zombie Apocalypse, which is a zombie feature. And that was my first kind of $1 million feature film. Financing and the legalities of being in control of that much money is that was a huge learning curve. And we survived it, which is fantastic, but I would do it better next time. Knowing how the industry works is now really convenient. I don't know. I would just go into my next project with a whole lot of in a different order of sequence.
So what do you love about being indie? And what does the word indie mean to you?
Yeah, to be indie is about freedom for me, I suppose. The Me and My Mates vs. Zombie Apocalypse was much less freedom, much less freedom. It was, and while it's still an indie film, it's absolutely an indie film, but it's kind of growing to that point. It's going closer to that point where the freedom becomes less and less. You've got more accountability to all sorts of people, which you owe them accountability. They've put money in, or they've put their name on a sheet of paper, which means it's going to be distributed, or it's, you know, you need to be accountable. But it means that you've got a lot of voices tying things down. So to be indie, to be able to write whatever I want, fund it myself, or do it with my crew of people who, you know, I do them favors, that kind of indie community that we've got in Canberra here is really important for my development and my kind of and for my catalogue. Looking back, it's like, without those people, I wouldn't have done the things that I wanted to do. I wouldn't have got to this point. I wouldn't understand as much as I do about, or think I do about, story.
So are you someone, as a director, when you're directing, are you someone who plans a lot of shots, or are you someone who likes to edit in camera?
No, yeah, I learned after I came back from that film school experience. I made my first feature film, short film, and I planned every shot completely, and I storyboarded, and I did all of that properly, and I'll never turn back. I need to know exactly the framing beforehand, because that framing tells my story. You know, it's like, it's going to be looking down because of these reasons, and if I've drawn it up first, I know what the edit is going to be like. I do prepare for the edit. I do let things run longer than the actors usually expect. I have to grab them at the start of the production process and say, don't stop acting until I say cut, because, you know, often it's obvious to them that a shot is only going to go from here to there because the rest is going to be useless. And I will be, getting the DOP to move the camera in the middle of the shot, and because it's working for me.
When I see the final cut of my movie, I am
wishing I could go back and shoot more. I mean, sometimes you get to the end of that editing process and you're like, wow, this is better than I ever expected. And you're like, yes. But often there's those moments that you've cut for hours. You've tried different things and you've just worked so hard on it, and it's still not achieving that emotional peak that you were hoping, or didn't get the joke right. Then you just think, oh, I'm going to have to let this one go.
Yeah.
And it's those little dips in the quality that you're hoping for that, you have to let go of any art at some point, and art is never going to be perfect, really. So I'm still proud of everything, even that moment. But I am always thinking, wow, I wish I had done this on set, or if I just worked with the actor a little bit more beforehand, or something like that.
I wonder if we'll ever get to see 9-year-old Christian's movies. If he even has them, I don't know. Christian's doing some amazing things now. He's got a virtual reality interactive platform that he's working on, which is just incredible. It's amazing. So he's got a lot of stuff going on, and it's going to be a great career for this young man. He's still young and he's still doing it, so that's hats off to him. It's awesome. Well, as we conclude our show here, this episode, Go Indie Now is going through stages just like everything else, and evolving and putting stuff up and down. And we are debuting 2 new shows in July. One will be a weekly news segment where I will I will give you guys all the places you can go to sell your work. Places accepting submissions, places, anthologies that you can get paid for, or magazines and stuff while I'm scouring the internet. And for readers and people looking for bargains on books, I'll have a 99-cent segment as well, 99-cent and free segment as well. And we will have a lot of information packed into a small time frame for our news program. So check that out. That'll be weekly starting July 8th. And then on the 15th of July, on Saturday night, we did kind of like the writer's hop with a bunch of YouTube channels before. It was just kind of a get-together hangout. Well, I'm going to do the same thing, only on Go Indie Now for the most part. And we'll interact via chat. Either I might do it on Facebook Live and broadcast it through Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And unless there's a bunch of people that want to get together, and then I'll open a hangout and we'll do that as well. But it's just going to be a fun experimental thing. We're going to just hang out and have a good time. So look out for that. Now, here you go with the next short film that we're doing. And that is The Time of the Turning. And you're about to watch it. And it's an interesting fantasy film. It's solely puppeteered. It is made with animatronic puppets. And the interesting thing about what's going on there is that Sean Darling, the creator, mentioned to me that it took him a year just to build the puppets and the stages and everything. Talk about going in stages. It took him a year. It took him a very short period of time to write the script, but then took him a year to design everything, just to design it, not to film anything, not to storyboard, edit, pre-production. His pre-production process was a year long, and then the production process, and then of course the post-production process, which I imagine was just as grueling and intense and long. And it's really, it pays off in dividends with this film. This film is amazing, and you just think about that. It took a year to make all this stuff, and it's about 8 minutes long, this film. Well, enjoy it, and we'll see you at the next episode. And remember, it's always time to go indie now. All right, everybody, we'll see you again next time.
Among the stones, the hands of the islander tick forward, slow and patiently, amid the sands, entrusted with the task to bring back the memory of what will come to be. We carry the talisman, a feeling in our hands. It's our sacred duty to bring life back to the land at the time of the turning, when the universe spins, to bring back the magic. We're beginning again. Three suns in alignment, shine of silver and gold. We embark on the journey as the wise ones foretold. Out on the sand, the priests of the Eneba move forward, slow and patiently. They walk the path on the bones of our past, a light in the darkness, on the journey to the tree. We carry the talisman, a feeling in our hands. It's our sacred duty to bring life back to the land at the time of the turning, when the universe spins, to bring back the magic. We're beginning again. Three suns in alignment, shine of silver and gold. We embark on the journey as the wise ones foretold. Beneath the tree, wisdom of the ages, in silence, waiting patiently for the dawn, burning through the gray, the light of a new day, shining on us all. We carry the talisman, a feeling in our hands. It's our sacred duty to bring life back to the land at the time of the turning, when the